Hey guys, I'm here today to do my favorite and worst books of 2016. I did 6 books that I loved and then I did 6 books that I disliked. These books did not all come out in 2016. They're just ones I read and they're the top ones when I looked through that I was like, wow, I loved that book, or wow, I really disliked that book. Instead of the middle grounds of oh, this book was okay, didn't really like it, didn't really love it. These were the ones that really stood out that I either love or hated, and I'm just going to go through and explain why I loved it or didn't like it. And yeah, if these are any of your favorite books that I didn't like, I'm really sorry. This is just my opinions of everything. So these 6 are my favorite books. I can't really rank them in order of which ones I loved the most or the worst. I just went through and these were the top that really stood out. So one of them was Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. It was so good. It's about a world with 3 different princesses, and they're all, when they turn 18, you fight who becomes the queen, and the other 2 kill each other. And it's one of them is a poisoner. She can ingest poison and doesn't get sick. One of them can manipulate animals, and one of them works with elements, but actually 2 of them's gifts aren't real and they're pretending. And so you go through the book trying to figure out which ones are pretending, and then the end, oh my god, it's such a good twist. This book was so good, and my favorite is the poisoner. I think her name was Catherine, and she was just my favorite. I don't know why. It was just really cool reading about someone getting poisoned and such. And I saw this review that was gave it 2 out of 5 stars and was if the only thing you like in a book is someone poisoning themselves, what's wrong with you? And I was like, okay, but it's super exciting and just so cool to read about that kind of stuff. So I just really liked this book. I flew through it. The ending is so twisty and cool, and I just can't wait for the second one. I also really loved A Vintage Affair by Isabel Wolf. My friend Sarah let me borrow this one a really long time ago, and I picked it up near the end of the year, middle of the year, and I really liked it. It's about a lady who owns a vintage shop. She used to be a lawyer. She had a high-end, well-paying job, and it just wasn't her passion. So she quit and opened up her own vintage shop, and it's just so cool because she just tells girls come in and she just connects with all of them, and she just cares about them and why a dress is important on them and what makes them happy. And so it's just a really good feel good about yourself. And it's also kind of a mystery story because her friend dies, and she knows how her friend dies, but we as a reader don't. So we're going through this mystery of how her friend dies through this book and how she's not with her fiance anymore, and there's some other love interests, but I didn't hate it. It was kind of a love triangle, but it's a really good one, and I have to return this book to her, but I'm totally going to get my own copy. I also loved Summer Days and Summer Nights. These were 12 love stories, edited by Stephanie Perkins, written by all these authors. Lovely. But I loved every single one of these stories. Usually in these kind of bind up things, I don't find them special. There's usually 3 stories that stand out to me that I love, but I loved everything in this book. I was going through the books I loved and I was like, yeah, I loved this one. I could reread this. Every story was great. I'm saying that over and over that I loved every one of them, but it's true. I loved all of them. They all stood out to me. They all were unique. They all were special. It was very, not just typical boy and girl love stories. There's lots of diversity and lots of different stories. Some weren't happy. Some were really sad, but they still focused on summer and love, and it was really good. Then I loved The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. This was so cool. I just really loved the show Full Metal Alchemist growing up. It's an anime. It's about a kid who does alchemy, and it's you draw different types of patterns and you can perform alchemy with them. I don't really know how to describe this. If you look up Full Metal Alchemist, it will do a much better job than I am doing. But this book is about arithmetists who draw patterns and then chalk figures come to life. It just reminded me so much of Full Metal Alchemist, but in a good way. I just loved it. And it's about a boy who really, really wants to be a arithmetist. He's super good at the math and the drawings, and when he draws things, it should make things happen. He draws what a figure of a chalk dragon should be, but he doesn't actually have magic in him, so he can't make it happen. And there's this girl he teams up with, and she's horrible at drawing her things, horrible at doing the work. She doesn't want to be there, she doesn't want to do the work, but she can make actual things happen. So they team up together, and he's the one who like draws the circles and makes the things, and then she makes the chalk figures go to life. And it's them like, you know, defending a bad guy and all these types of books, but it's just really good. He wrote this such a long time ago, and there's supposed to be a sequel, and I just really want one. I just loved this world, and I just need more of this world. The other two books I loved, I read from the library, so I don't own one to hold up, but I will insert a picture if I remember. But I loved Fairest by Marissa Meyer. This is the fourth book in the Lunar Chronicle series, and it's the point of Levana, the bad guy's point of view. I love bad guy point of views. Like, this was my favorite in the series so far. I haven't read Winter yet or the short stories, but Fairest was so good. I listened to it on audiobook, and I listened to it for like 6 hours or whatever, and it was so good. I didn't want it to end. I loved everything about it. You like knew, this is how you learned how Levana was the way she was, I thought, and I just think it's just such a good, I love tragic backstories of like villains, and so it was just super good. You saw how she became like evil. I mean, she kind of already was just sort of an evil person, but you see more of how she became the way she is in the Lunar Chronicles, and I just highly recommend it. I thought it was really good in the series. And finally, I loved the book The Way I Used to Be. I read this from the library on my Kindle on my way to Disney World, actually. Like half of the flight from Washington to Florida, and it was just really good. It was about a girl in her freshman year. She was raped by her brother's best friend, and her brother's best friend basically tells her, if you tell anyone, I'll kill you. No one will believe you anyway, so why would you even like bring it up? So it just kind of like shatters her as a person. It goes from her freshman year then to her senior year, and every year it's just she goes more and more downhill and more depressed and sad and feels like she has no one, and it's just such a heartbreaking, great story. The ending, of course, you know, is like brings it together and doesn't make it just a horrible like rape book. It brings it together with family and love and trust and such, but it's just such a good read. I highly recommend it. I don't own it either, and it's one I'm definitely going to have to pick up because I really want to reread it. And those were the books I loved this year. And I mean, there were some more that were top in there, but I just didn't want to make this video like 20 books I loved or anything. And so next I'm going to go in the 6 I just completely didn't like. These were ones when I was going through I was like, oh yeah, these were 2-star, 1.5-star books. I didn't like them at all, hated them, this is why. First is Terry Pratchett's A Color of Magic. I know this, I feel like this shouldn't be on here because it's not a genre I would ever like anyway. It's just like weird, kind of like fantasy, sci-fi, just a weird genre I don't think I would ever read. And people say you shouldn't even read this first and second book. You need to like read deeper into this Discworld trilogy and you'll like it. But I know why not to read this one, because it was awful. It was so boring. It was just not my cup of tea, not my genre, I think. But I think I might try to read ones that people say like, oh, you should start in this world, because apparently this is like a 50-book series or something, and you're supposed to just read random like chunks of like 13 through 15 go together or something like that. So I might pick one in there. I know my brother super loves this series. He was telling me that I shouldn't have even read this one and I should have started with other ones, but how am I supposed to know that I shouldn't read number 1 in a series? But you're supposed to like go back to how horribly written this is, I guess, compared to the rest of the series. But yeah, not very good. Then I hated Vasa in the Night by Sarah Porter. I got this in an Owl Crate box. I was super disappointed with this. I read this like for 2 hours straight, and it was just horrible. It was just so confusing and just so boring. It is retold of a story called Melissa the Beautiful, and I've never looked up what that story is to see if it did a good job retelling that story, but as its own story, it's just not a good story at all. Then I hated The Museum of Intangible Things by Wendy Wonder. I really want to save this cover though, because it's beautiful, and I mean that's why I bought it, because I'm a sucker for covers. I'm horrible. But it was just a horrible story. It was just a really bad mental illness story that was not, I don't think, thought of well. I don't know why people recommend it as a good story. It ended horribly wrong. Like, it ended in such a negative way that it should have been I don't know, I think they could have handled it a lot better. So yeah, it was just horrible. I hated it. I do not recommend it. The other 3 books I hated, I do not own. I either got rid of them or I borrowed them from the library, but I will try to, again, insert a picture. So first, I hated Illuminae. Everyone seems to love this story. I jumped on the bandwagon. I was like, oh, I have to read this book. Everyone loves it. How did you love it? It was horrible. It was written in like logs and emails and stuff, and that didn't really bother me. I don't really like that kind of story anyway though, because I'd rather just read a book. But the thing that bothered me was the characters were awful. The 2 main characters, there's a boy and girl, they used to date, they like broke up with each other, and all they could do was like talk about each other while the ship was like going down with like diseases and such, and that didn't matter. It was just like their love mattered through all of this. There was also like the computer program of the ship was like in love with the main character girl. It was very strange. And the main character girl was just so full of herself, thought she was amazing, thought she was this amazing programmer, all this jazz. She's like 17 years old. She didn't listen to like her superiors. And it was just horrible. I gave it like 2 stars. I would never recommend it. I don't know how people loved it and like loved the series and it's like a top book. It's not good. I did not like it. And I hated Passengers by Alexandra Bracken. This was a time-traveling novel. I don't think I'm very into time-traveling novels. I tried to read a few other ones and I did not really like them. This one was pretty bad. It was just very boring. People were recommending this one as well. I don't know how. I would rather read anything else, but like this story, it was just about a girl who like time travels back in time and meets this boy, so then of course it becomes like a love story while they keep time traveling to other places. And finally I read the book Beautiful Disaster. And it was awful. It was an awful portrayal of love. The character was very abusive. The boy main character, he would just manipulate the girl main character. Everything was like what he wanted, what he needed. If she talked to another guy, he would like punch the guy or punch the wall. Like everything was about him. She couldn't talk to other people. She couldn't look at other people. She couldn't be with her friend because her friend wasn't him. And it was just very controlling and manipulative. There's like a bunch of books in the series. Why did this author write more? How was this approved? I don't know. But it's just very bad. Just a negative story and not good at all. So yeah guys, those were my top books of the year and my negative books of the year of 2016. I'm hoping next year I'll have like no bad books to talk about, right? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know below what are some of your favorite books you read in 2016 and what were some of the worst books. And thank you guys so much. Bye guys.